Hi, welcome to the 10th video of this series on surviving IIM Ahmedabad. This one is the second one about the relationships, where I talk about the 7 key campus relationships. So I've covered batchmates in the previous one, and here going to talk about professors and guests. Now, we've all had interactions with professors before, so a lot of what I'm going to say is obvious, and really the intent of the video here is to tell you that some of the fears that we really have while approaching our professors and the guests which are on campus, sometimes esteemed. Some of those fears are rather baseless, and if we actually get over them, there are so many possibilities that open up. So, as always, just go over these slides if you haven't already in the previous videos to get a sense of where I'm coming from when I'm saying all of these things. And I'll jump right into it. First, talking about the professors. So, like I say, it's mostly obvious and everyone has had enough experience, but I'm just trying to add my IIM experience here. So the the primary interaction with the professor is in classroom, and you can just have debates, you can have discussions, and the best part is you can have disagreements with most of the professors on campus if there's requirement and there's some basis. And that is so useful because I think a lot of what we are talking about in a B-school environment is discussion without a particular answer. So, what the professor is telling us is definitely one point of view. And so many times it will happen that you would not agree with what the professor is saying entirely. At that point of time, there are really two alternatives. One is to completely ignore what they are saying and just, in a bullheaded way, continue with what you believe, or maybe try to question them and just realize where they are coming from. And what might happen is that the real situation or your understanding is somewhere between what the professor is saying and what your current stand is. But what I find is that will really not happen unless you debate, discussion, and sometimes disagree with your professor. So absolutely use that opportunity, and given the professors most of them are open to it, I think it's a great thing to try out. And sometimes I feel that even if you will realize that some professors are not open to it, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, no professor holds a grudge against a student. The worst I've seen happen in this situation is the professor asking a student to reconsider, sometimes in a manner which uh, can be little curt. That's it. So, I mean, that's a very small cost to pay compared to the possibility of getting a clearer sense of understanding and making sense of the world around us in a better fashion. So, please use these opportunities within class. But more than that, it's the office hours, or when I say, I have not seen most of the professors hold regular office hours. But what you can do is you can just type out an email to them, and whenever I've done that, I've received a positive response from a professor to get time. And you can do so many things. I mean, you can continue the debate, discussion, and disagreement. What I found is that within the classroom, some professors are not as open to the whole discussion part because they have to finish a particular level of curriculum. But when you discuss these things with them outside of the classroom, they're very, very open to it. And why I believe that's the case is because all of our professors are innately intellectually curious, and they really, really respond to the other person's curiosity also. So, if your query is genuine, then I'm sure you will find great discussion buddies in your professors. So, that's one thing. Second is that you can always seek assignment. You can always seek their advice on assignments. What's the point of doing an assignment with just your primary research when you have these really brilliant people moving around? Take advice on them in their course primarily, and maybe if you want to reach out to a professor of some other course, that's also okay. Talk to them, share your plan of action with them, get more inputs that this is what I'm thinking, how do I take it to the next level so that my learnings are better. I honestly did not do enough of that. I tried doing that some bit in the second year, not so much in the first year, and I wish I had done that from the very beginning. That's why I've put this here for people who want to do that now. The third thing would be Seeking advice on competitions. We already covered this in the video on competitions. Competitions are very interesting problems wherein you have to think outside the box, come up with a solution which even the company has not been able to. So why don't you use your creativity and the expertise of professors to build something which is great? Because the professors have read so much, they might be able to tell you so much more than you can research on your own in your limited amount of time. So feel free to reach out to them for these things also. The fourth thing is career advice. This might be tricky because not all professors are aligned with all careers, but find your niche. I mean, I completely understand that perhaps not all professors can uh, guide an individual, because even the professors perhaps not have enough exposure. Let's say a professor will not have enough exposure to all the different career streams. But there are some professors who have, let's say, worked with the placement committee. There are professors who have actually come from the industry that you can seek out to and take their advice. And some professors have just been doing this for so long, they have already advised some of their previous students. They have seen how the careers, most importantly, have seen careers of previous students shape up. So if you seek career advice to them, and I have done that a couple of times, you will find that professors give you very good inputs, because of all the people that I've taken advice from when it comes to career, it feels like most of our professors are are the most detached people in that sense. I mean, if you talk to people who are already in the industry, you might find some biases either in favor or against a particular sector, because people end up either defending their choices or they are highly colored by their own positive or negative experiences. Whereas professors who are on campus, there's no benefit for a particular professor to sell a sector or the other. So they really give advice which is based on a more thorough understanding of the whole ecosystem and not just a very tunneled vision of what is right, what is wrong. So if you're very confused, reach out to professors, take their advice, and maybe reach out to 2 3 professors and get a time related advice, get all the inputs you can get, and then make your own choices. Then perhaps an extension of all of these ideas is you can discuss something you've read recently. Like, I remember one of my friends, this is not something I did actively, but a friend used to do this, that he used to, whenever he came across an interesting article, he would share it with the pertinent professor and have a discussion with that professor. And 3 or 4 times that he described this process to me, I was like completely floored that, hey, that's a pretty smart thing to do. If you have a professor who, let's say, works in the strategy area, and you read a very exciting news article that this particular firm has made this shift in their strategy, you can hypothesize on your own, or you could actually go a step further, write to a professor. That's a professor, I was reading this particular news item. This is what I thought about it. Can I come to you and discuss for like 10 15 minutes and have a better understanding on the issue? If you link what you're reading in the world with the expertise of the professors, I think the sense making, which I said initially in one of my earlier videos, is the primary reason to study at IIM or any other B school. That process is accelerated. So try doing that, and you can absolutely, like, with everything comes the fact that you can discuss your crazy ideas with professors. Be mindful of their time, but especially like in the second year when the class sizes are smaller and the professors get to know you at a one-on-one basis, then this kind of discussion really starts shaping up even more. So feel free to do that also. I'm not saying that will always be possible, but do not remove it from the realm of possibility that you only need to have very practical, very professional discussions with the professors. That's absolutely not going to be the case. So there's so many ways in which we can engage with our professors, and I would urge you to start exploring that from the very beginning. So just like, do not leave campus without exploring this bond outside of this mundane instructor recipient relationship, which is what we have in class. I i think that looking back, I could have explored this more. My learning would have been more. So this is where I'm coming from. So that's on the professor front. I know a lot of this was something that is so obvious, and yet we don't do this. That's why I think it's important to say it out loud. Second, talking about guests. These would be very sporadic interactions, but I believe these have the possibility of being very powerful. So broadly, I've broken down guests into two parts. You have speakers and then you have recruiters. So much could be said here, but what I've tried to do is I've just kept at the minimal. I've kept the points at the minimal, so just the basics are covered, which I think are in themselves are powerful enough for one to get more out of every interaction they have with such guests. So three things, assuming you're meeting them in a session or outside, before the session, during the session, after the session. Before the session, I mean, research the speaker's background thoroughly. Like I would in every video that I'm sharing here, I share my background initially. I share my motivation for making these videos, because unless I believe that unless you understand where a particular person or speaker is coming from, you don't really, not everything that they say makes sense. You might discount something that they're saying, or you might over index on something they are saying if you don't understand their background and where they're coming from. So study their background so you can contextualize everything. That's one benefit of that. Second is that if you have studied their background well, then you also, if let's say you find something which is similar to your background, that forms a basis of connection with them, that you can essentially use as an anchor when you're trying to talk to them, let's say during or after the session. So research the speaker, and equally or perhaps even more important is research the context of the talk. What's the expertise of the speaker vis-a-vis the topic? Why is the topic relevant? And what all has been said around this topic by other smart people, so that whatever this particular speaker is saying, let's say it's very interesting, something new, it's not the gospel truth. And I guess somehow, at least that's a bias with me and for some of my friends, that when we see someone successful speaking in front of us and they are sharing their views on this topic because they are someone we look up to, I end up believing a lot of what they are saying. So what I've started doing is, before I hear them out, I actually understand the context of the talk a little more, see what other smart people have said on this topic, so that when they are speaking, I don't believe it as a gospel truth. So emphasize this point twice because I think it's very important. Uh, then the third thing is to just spend 2 minutes on understanding your aspiration with the session, like why you want to attend that particular session. I've always emphasized on this point that your time is limited on campus, and there's so many things which stake a claim on that time. So it's always good to have a clarity so that your learning is focused. Are you attending this session to learn a particular thing, or are you attending this session only with the express purpose of having a chance to talk to that person? And if it's a learning perspective, what exactly are you trying to learn? If you have that clarity, then perhaps you have the opportunity to shape the question and answer part of it, or the breakout sessions that happen after the discussion in a particular manner so that your aspirations get fulfilled. And it's pretty helpful because if you understand the first two, if you understand the background of the speaker and the context of the talk, then what you seek out of the session comes more naturally also. So I think all these points are connected. And this last point is just from a practicality perspective. This is again, I think sometimes we become so dependent on our ecosystem that we attend sessions because others are attending. We don't attend sessions when others are not attending. And I made this mistake a few times. I was like, यार तू चलेगा तो मैं चलूंगा. And I realized that I don't think that had to be the reasoning for not attending a session. Because as I've always emphasized, priorities are different, learning goals that we set for ourselves are different. So moving forward, if you get a chance to not make your attendance contingent on your friends always, that would be a smarter thing to do. So those are all the things to just keep in mind before the session. Then during the session, if you can, if it's relevant, if it aligns with your learning goals from the session, ask a question. And please avoid desperation. I mean, I don't know if I've done this or not in a guest session. I hope I am not. But I've seen people ask questions which on the face of it seem just like an opportunity to get FaceTime. Avoid it. The speaker is smart enough, the crowd is smart enough to figure that out. So only if it's relevant, ask a question. But If it's relevant, do that. I mean, irrespective of the status of the speaker in front of you, I don't think there's any reason to not ask them a question. And sometimes I found that me and my batchmates got intimidated by the stature of the person in front of us, and we were always second guessing ourselves. Is our question stupid? It might be genuine, but we were still worried. Is the question stupid? I would just ask you not to self correct for that, and just ask that question. If it's a stupid question, the speaker will probably give you like a 10-second answer. If it's a good question, the speaker will probably give you more time. And trust yourself a little more. You have cleared so many exams to be in the B school that you are at right now. Why would you really ask a stupid question? Is the confidence you need to have on yourself. But at the same time, avoid a question which you could have just figured from Google. So I think what I'm trying to say with this is ask more questions about perspective then rather to just get more factual knowledge. So these are the very basic things to take care when the session is happening. And then after the session, I think the key thing is not to stop your learning process when the session ends or when the breakout session ends. Discuss and research more. The talk, and I mean that's true for almost all the talks I've attended on campus, that they left me with more questions than they answered. So it only makes sense to actually spend a little more time, discuss those with people who attended the talk, or even with people who have not attended the talk. You can give them a brief and just say, hey, this interesting question came up. And consequently research individually, friends, and again go back to, if something doesn't make sense or something excites you, go to your professor and discuss that, hey, I attended this particular talk, so can I please have a discussion with you? And perhaps if you do all of this and you still feel that, hey, I want to establish a connect with the speaker, consider dropping a note to the speaker that I attended your talk, I really liked it, and this is something I really liked, it connected with me. And yeah, I mean, you can shape it the way it want. It would change with your equation with the speaker, their stature, the content of the session. But don't shy away, don't think that this is a complete no. You can do it. So consider dropping a note to the speaker if it's relevant. I think these are some just basic things that do not always come to us intuitively, but if done, can really leave a impact on our learning outcomes, and we might end up resulting into having a interesting connect with the person. So that's what I just wanted to discuss. And I hope that you make most of the opportunities of speakers, and even with the recruiters, you have great and open discussions with them whenever they are on campus. So as always, do not forget to check out the case interview preparation videos on this channel. Keep revisiting some of these ideas that we have discussed in this video and some of the previous videos. Share it with anyone that you find would benefit from this, and leave a comment if you think this has been helpful for you. So just take care, best of luck, and stay curious.